Good day and welcome to Predators Proclivity, where we look at the data from the season for the NHL Nashville Predators and make comments upon it. I'm your host, Preston Proctor. And it's Friday the 18th, and the Preds' next game is tomorrow night, or tomorrow, Saturday at 1 in the afternoon, Saturday at 1. So if you're planning on going, don't get there at 7. That's my advice to you. It's a 1 p.m. game here in Nashville. They're not my favorite to go to. I don't know. It just seems like it kind of, I don't know. It makes a mess of the day. It seems like, you know, what do? You can't drink beer. You already had lunch. But yeah, the games tend to be really well attended, which is awesome. I guess at that time of the day, families can get there, and so that's really good, and it's nice to see that the stands get filled up, and it's a really good time, and not that they don't draw crowds really well, but Saturday afternoons seems to be a pretty good time for the Predators. So that's tomorrow. Tomorrow is the game, 1 o'clock on Saturday. And they are at home, which is here in Nashville. I already made that clear, to take on the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings are 1-3 overall and 0-1 on the road. Currently, they are last, 8th in the they're not in the Pacific Division. A little bit of an editing problem there. They are in the Atlantic. They are 8th in the Atlantic, last in the Atlantic Division with 2 points. They started the season playing 2 at home, losing to Pittsburgh 3-6 and beating Nashville 3-0. Then they had an away home series with the Rangers. They lost in New York 1-4 and then lost last night at home 2-5. The Red Wings, in each of their, first 3 games played 3 different goaltenders, so I was kind of confused by that. And I didn't practice the names that I didn't intend to, so I'm still going to butcher them, but I didn't plan on pronouncing them correctly. Ville Husso started the first game of the year against Pittsburgh. It was pulled after the 4th goal at 5:08 in the second. Cam Talbot finished the game. Husso was in a Nashville kind of relation here. Was the backup to Saros on Team Finland in 2014 for the IIHF World Junior Championship. So Husso started the first game, got pulled, and then 3 days later they put him on waivers. So that's how that went down. Not exactly sure about that. Being cause and effect, because they did get Talbot in the off season, and Leon was their starting goaltender last year. So that might have been, I guess, if I had looked a little more into it, but I was looking at transactions and stuff, and I couldn't really make a lot of heads and tails out of it. I just thought it was funny. He started a goal getting pulled and then got put on waivers. So Cam Talbot was in goal for the Nashville game, and Alex Leon was the backup. And then Leon started the 3rd game, and Talbot was the backup. So 3 games, 3 different goaltenders starting. Talbot was in goal last night against New York. So not sure how they're going to be running their goaltending crew this year. Leon was their main goaltender last year. I believe that's what you would call him. In the offseason, they made a number of changes. Their current lineup has 4 new people, which is not a lot, not terrible. Notable forward not on the team anymore is left wing David Perron. He was an unrestricted free agent, got signed by Ottawa, put in a lot of minutes against Nashville. New forwards on their lineup, they got center Tyler Mote. He was an unrestricted free agent with Tampa Bay. He bounced around the league the last couple of years. He had 1-year stints at New York Rangers, Ottawa, back to the Rangers, Tampa Bay. Now he's with Detroit. Before all that, he spent 5 years with Vancouver. So kind of bouncing around a little bit. Not sure what to think about that, but he's new. Probably more interesting is right wing Vladimir Tarasenko, an unrestricted free agent with Florida. The last few years, he's also been bouncing around a little bit. He was with the Rangers, Ottawa, Florida. He did spend 11 years at St. Louis. I have one of his jerseys signed. I got it at a Preds auction. My wife blames me for that because the next night we played St. Louis here and lost. And somehow my buying the jersey, winning the jersey at an auction, precipitated the loss. Not sure, but she's right. I'm not going to fight that one. But anyway, so Tarasenko is now playing for Detroit, right wing. A really good player. Like I said, he was with Florida last year, so won the Stanley Cup there. The notable defenseman not with the team, Jeff Petrie, is on injured reserve. He's day-to-day. He might play tomorrow night, not sure. They do have a new defenseman in their lineup, Albert Johansson. They brought him up from their minor league team, the Grand Rapids Griffins. So we may see Petrie in the line tomorrow night. We may see Johansson. The goaltender not with the team, I've already alluded to somebody new. James Reimer is an unrestricted free agent signed by Buffalo. The new goalie is Cam Talbot, unrestricted free agent from L.A. He bounced around a lot. He was 2 years at the Rangers, 4 in Edmonton, then Philadelphia, Calgary, 2 years in Minnesota, Ottawa, and then in L.A. So a very popular backup goaltender. So that's that's a little bit of the lineup changes for Detroit. Last year, Detroit started the season by losing their first game, then won 5 in a row, and then lost 3. They were 1-1 in their first 2 road games. Tonight's game is their second road game. They are 0-1 on the road this season, having lost in New York to the Rangers. Tomorrow night's game is the first of a 2-game road trip for the Red Wings. After tonight, they play the Islanders and then head back home for a game. And then they go on the road for a game, and then they're back home. So kind of bouncing around a little bit. The Nashville Predators. The Predators, after last night's game, and that was me keeping my my rant in check. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to say? I mean, it was Edmonton. Edmonton's still really good. They have their lineup changes, but they're still a tough team, and they, what are you going to do? I'd prefer to beat them. That's what I'd prefer to do. But hey, nobody put me in. As I mentioned, I can't skate, so I can't skate very well. I can skate fast in a straight line. The Preds are now 0-4 overall and 0-3 at home. Tomorrow's game is the third of a 4-game homestand. They played Seattle last Tuesday, Edmonton last night, and they will play Boston this coming Tuesday. The Preds are still in 7th place in the Central Division with 0 points, tied with Colorado at 0 points, but the Preds have a lower goal differential. Colorado is at -12, and the Preds are at -10. Last season, the Preds were 2-3 in their first 5 games, splitting 2 at home and losing the first 2 away, finally beating the Rangers on the road. In their first 4 home games last year, this being the first 4 home games of this year, they were 2-2. They beat Seattle, they lost to Detroit, they beat San Jose, they lost to Vancouver. Win, lose, win, lose. So far, it's been lose, lose, lose. Tomorrow night's matchup is the second and last game, and the only home game with Detroit. Yep, that's right, fans. 5 games into the season, and we're done playing one team. That's seems a little goofy, but yeah, that's how the schedule works. I guess it doesn't really matter when you play a team. So 5 games in, and we're done with Detroit. After tomorrow night, we won't see Detroit again unless we meet them in the Stanley Cup Finals. Yeah, I don't care. I'm not. I don't like Detroit, but we're only going to play them twice anyway. So the Preds won the one home game last year, 1-0. 1-0 last year at home, after having lost in Detroit 4-5 in overtime. So they lost in Detroit and won at home. Earlier, I guess before the Seattle game, I was kind of seeing a lot of similarities between last season and this season, and that kind of ended. Kind of. I mean, we still lost to Edmonton, which is what I thought. I thought we would beat Seattle. So, anyway, that's how that went down last year. We beat them at home and lost to them in Detroit, and played in the same order. We played in Detroit and then at home. And so this year we're in Detroit, and now we're at home. I don't know, maybe playing in the afternoon. The Preds will get their game going. Okay. Coming into the game, the Preds are on a 4-game losing streak, and Detroit is on a 2-game losing streak. So somebody is going to have their streak end. That's me not making a prediction. I'm just going to try to keep my mouth shut on some of this stuff. I don't know that it. I don't know that anybody gets anything out of it, and then it just proves how poor of a prognosticator I am. Anyhow, what are the Preds like at home? Well, geez, at least we're starting to get enough games and periods in that. We're starting to look at trends and things can be a little bit more on the relevant side and realistic side, and something you can kind of pay attention to when we're looking for trends, which is kind of what I do. I look more for what have they done in the past and how are they looking to be the same. The proclivities, what are they inclined to do in circumstances, and and you kind of have to look at that in a seasonal standpoint. I've started looking back at trying to look back at last season and find similarities and talk about it. So I've got some numbers coming up at the end of this. So if you're having some trouble sleeping later, bring up the end of this podcast when I start going through all the numbers, and boy, you will have the best sleep of your life. Hopefully I don't fall asleep while I'm telling you about it. Anyhow, what are the Preds like at home? Well, they've lost 3. And they lost their last game at home last night against Edmonton. In that particular game, they did get the first goal of the game, which, if I remember my numbers right, last season, the team that got the first goal of the game was 55-22-5 in the Preds games, which is pretty strong indicator. That is the only good news about last night's game. They got the first goal of the game, which meant they had their first lead of the season, and they got the first goal of the game in the first period. The first period did end in a tie, with Edmonton getting a goal late. That was kind of a heartbreaker. And in the second period, again, it was a really hard fought. Edmonton scored, and then the Preds got one back, and then Edmonton got their third goal. So they wound up winning the second period 2-1 and taking the lead in the game. We did get Marcia Schultz's first goal as a Pred, so that's another checkbox. We got the first goal of the game. Marcia Schott got his first goal as a Predator. I believe that was the goal where Saros got an assist, which the announcers were making a big deal of. I guess that's 8 for him. Somehow I don't think that assists are, I mean, it's fun if you're a goaltender to get an assist, but, I think when you get a bunch of goaltenders sitting around, they're not talking about how many assists they've got. If they scored a goal, now I bet that, would be something, but hey, I had 5 assists in my career. Oh, good for you. Good for you. How was that record? How'd you like chewing on not winning the Stanley Cup? Hey, I only had 4 assists, but you know what? I won the Stanley Cup. Well, and the Vezina Trophy. Chew on that. But whatever. It's something to talk about, that these guys are paid to talk, so they have to come up with something to talk about. I thought it was interesting having the guy down on the ice. Apparently he needs to learn how to throw. The puck came into the area where he was at, which is, that could be a little, I mean, you haven't got far to go. You haven't got a lot of room to move around in there. But, the puck came in there, and then he threw it right into the Edmonton bench. He tried to throw it to a little girl. He tried not to throw it at a little girl. He tried to throw it at an adult near the little girl so the little girl could get it. And he wound up throwing the puck into the Edmonton bench. It was funny because then the Edmonton guys were looking to see about throwing it back over the things and realized that they could just hand it around the pane of glass. So I think that was the smarter move. The girl did wind up with the puck. She did not seem impressed at all. But hey, if you're going to give the puck to somebody, you may as well give it to a little girl. Anyhow, what are we talking about? Oh, yeah, this is littlegirlsathockey.com. Anyway, so, Marcia Schultz got his first goal. Saros got an assist. We lost the second period 2-1. And then the third period was also a real battle, a lot of back and forth. Edmonton wound up getting an empty netter, and that was pretty much it. So they got the first goal of the game, which is usually, especially, the Preds at home last year were awesome. They had like a 3-1 advantage if they got the first goal about winning. And last night was, with the exception to prove the rule. The exception proves the rule. Okay. Well, that was last season. We'll see how it goes this season. They did tie 1 and lost 2. And as I've said, if you win 2 periods, you're going to win. If you lose 2 periods, you're going to lose. That is a truism from last season. for the Preds. I don't know if that's true. It seems like it wouldn't necessarily be true. But if you don't win a period, you're going to lose. So last night, the Preds did not win a period. They tied one and lost two, which in nobody's math does that wind up with a victory. So there you go. There was good things like the lineups, the forward lineups. I'm having a hard time tracking who's who on the ice. But I have to admit, I was watching it and a little bit at one speed because I was watching I had both recorded, but I was flipping back and forth between the Virginia Tech Boston College game last night. So it was kind of nice that way I didn't have to watch commercials. But yeah, I started watching at one speed. Don't really get a lot out of the Predator commentators. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But yeah, anyway. Anyway, so we tied one and lost two. First game of the year that the Preds got the first goal, the first game of the year the Preds had a lead, and the first goal by Marcia Schultz. So what haven't the Preds done so far? As far as things I'm tracking, the Preds still have not won a game, and Stamkos hasn't gotten a goal. I guess you could throw that in. They kept pronouncing the guy's Shea. And I guess I really ought to ask him. It's like my dad said, you could spell your last name ABC and then pronounce it Mule, and that's how it's supposed to be pronounced. So I guess the announcers would know. So Shea, so Brady Shea, he's gotten a goal, but he hasn't gotten an assist. And as I said before, he's more of an assist guy, and then he goes and scores a goal. Again, reason why I try not to make predictions. So last season, the Preds were 1-1 at home when they tied the first and lost the second. They were 1-4 on the road. However, there was only one game where they got the first goal, and that was on the road in Arizona. So tying the first and losing the second is not really a scenario of good things for the Preds. And again, in the game where they got the first goal, they also lost that game in Arizona. I started looking at the statistics last year with regards to what did the scoring look like when the Preds were tied at the end of the first game, first period. And they were 10-5 at home. 15 times they were tied at home, and they were 10-5 in those games. They also were tied at the end of one twice at home, twice in the playoffs, and lost both of those against Calgary. The Calgary Canucks, the Vancouver Canucks, that is. In the games that they won, they were 5-1-4 in the second and 8-0-2 in the third. So being tied at the end of the first, 10-5. So it really, that's not that bad of an indicator, and a good harbinger for the third. And their losses, they were 2-1-2 in the second. So overall 7-2-6. In the second. So generally at home, when they tied, they did play better in the second. They tied the first, they play better in the second. And then when the games that they lost, I guess not surprisingly, they were 0-4-1 in the third versus 8-0-2 in the third when they won. And these were all games where they were tied at the end of the first period. As far as the scoring in particular goes, when the first period is tied, the 3 times the Preds didn't score, 7 times they would score 1 goal, 4 times they would score 2, and once they scored 3. And for the opponents, it was 8 times they would score 0, 5 times 1, and twice they would score 2. So the scoring for the Preds in the second period, much better, 10-5. I mean, so they wind up winning those games. So the scoring is much better for the Preds than the opposition last year when they tie the first period. So again, I guess the takeaway there is that a tie game at the end of the first is not necessarily a harbinger of bad tidings at home. So no reason to lose hope, but it would be nice to win a period. It would be, well, I guess they did win a period. They won the second period the other night at home against Seattle. So that they have won a period. They have won a period. They have won one period. Singular. Stands alone. Proud. A proud moment in Predators history. So that's the arcane statistics. For those of you that are still awake, the Nashville Predators are playing tomorrow at 1 o'clock Central Time here in Nashville against the Detroit Red Wings. Really need to get a win. So if you're going to the game, cheer hard and cheer loud. We need to get a win. We've got to reverse this losing streak and get things going a little bit better here. But I'm sure they will at some point. I had predicted that they would beat Detroit this Saturday. They can't lose all their games. They're going to have to win one, I think. I guess. I'm sorry. I expected. I just really had a lot more hope for the season than we've had for now. Again, as I pointed out in the last podcast, Edmonton went 2-10 in their first 12 games last year and wound up in the Stanley Cup Finals. So it's a long season. Look for the Predators to get their act together. And once they do, I think they're going to take off. I appreciate that, getting the right line combinations and figuring out in the different circumstances, who they need to have with whom, and the defensive pairings and the forward pairings and all the different circumstances and matchups. So that's going to take a little bit of time, and I am confident that they will get it all worked out. So it's going to be a great season. Hasn't been a great start, but it's going to be a great season. And at the end of the season, we'll be like, hey, you remember when we lost those 4 games at the beginning of the season and how bad we felt? Well, it's pretty good now. So that's what we're looking forward to. Anyhow, tomorrow, Nashville Predators take on the Detroit Red Wings at 1 o'clock. Go Preds. I'm Preston Proctor, and you've been listening to Predators Proclivity.